ASMR Magical Tools. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So, let's start with a little smoke cleansing. Get everything right and proper from the week. It is actually raining here in Los Angeles, which almost never happens. So that's exciting. They also took down some trees earlier today next door. So that put me a little bit behind with my shooting schedule. Maybe it would have made a difference. It's difficult to say. And again, this is just a little piece of cassia bark. It smells very sweet. It smells very spicy and lovely. So just let this wonderful cleansing smoke kind of wash over you. And there we go. Nice little wispy bits of smoke, and we will get started on the weekly forecast just shortly. But I did want to get a little bit of this smoke cleansing in. I think it just helps everyone relax. Just let all of the weekly grind kind of float off into the ether, and let the smoke envelop you in its rich and spicy aroma. It's really wonderful. Cassia has strong solar correspondences, so I am being encouraged at this time to work more with solar forms of magic. We will still be, of course, covering what the moon is doing and the lunar cycles for the weekly astrology videos. But I want to start adding more solar correspondences to these videos where it is appropriate. And eventually, of course, I will be putting out a video on solar magic. If you want a video on lunar magic, I may end up covering that. But one thing that I wanted to mention is the difference between videos that I do by rote and videos that I do because these are active parts of my practice. Now, I'm more than happy to research a lot of these things and make videos about them, especially things like Golden Dawn, where there is a fair amount of public information available. Sometimes having it in an ASMR video is helpful. And I do use a lot of the Golden Dawn correspondences. However, I am not a member of the Golden Dawn, so any videos or anything that I make regarding the Golden Dawn is going to be what I call by rote, in that it is something that I have taken the material and digested it into a video, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I work with those modalities to a T. There have been times where I did Liber Resh. I did Liber Resh for about 2 years, and practicing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram regularly. So it's not that I'm totally unfamiliar with the practices, but I'm not a member of that order. So anything that I bring to you is going to be mostly by rote. And same thing for lunar correspondences. I have been in communication, of course, with my primary deity about these things, and my primary deity is, of course, solar, and I have been discouraged heavily from getting too involved in lunar magic, except how it relates to the sun. And it's an important distinction to make that you can still work with lunar correspondences when you are recognizing that the light of the moon is but a reflection of the sun. So there are ways to incorporate all of these things together and create a more complete practice out of it. So, my encouragement to you, of course, I will be going over a lot of the things that I am personally digesting for my own magical practice. But if there's something that's not already a part of what I'm doing, I'm happy to make a video about it. But I just want to make that distinction between videos that I make from rote and videos that I make from my practice. So what's the sky doing? Firstly, the moon is going to be starting here in Sagittarius on October 11th. And when it goes into Capricorn this week, it will be the second quarter waxing moon. Second quarter waxing moon. Second quarter waxing moon. And then by Sunday, the 17th, it will be over here in the sign of Pisces again. We do have Jupiter going direct this week. Jupiter going direct. So I think that means the only retrograde planet left. Let's see. Mercury will be going direct on the 18th. So Jupiter goes direct kind of between Sunday and Monday. And then, okay, so Uranus and Neptune will be retrograde still. But Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and Mercury will all be direct by early next week. So let's talk about October 11th, which is Monday. This is Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day, and Thanksgiving Day in Canada. On Monday, October 11th, we will be in the 22nd lunar mansion, which is Sa'ad al-Dabi, the fortune of the sacrificer, or the lucky one of the slaughterer. And this is a star, I believe, in the sign of Capricorn. There is escape from limitation, liberation from constraint, swift flight, deliverance, and healing energies associated with this. I had spoken the previous week about the overnight energy, which is the moon in Sagittarius being void of course, sextile Jupiter in Aquarius. So that's going to be occurring on the East Coast at midnight. And remember that Jupiter will be going direct this week, but at this time it is still retrograde. So, this moon in Sagittarius sextile Jupiter in Aquarius. There could be expansion of social groups when it comes to different religious organizations of which you are a part. It could have to do with groups you're involved with at college, if you're involved in higher education. It could also be expansion of social groups regarding long distance travel. Your friends all over the world, I'm sure, must miss you so much. At 10:15 in the morning on the West Coast and 1:15 p.m. on the East Coast, that's 13:15 if you keep 24-hour time, the moon is going to enter the sign of Capricorn. And remember too, that there was an opportune period from the previous Sunday that will be ending at that time, And this is a good opportune period for renewal, so don't miss out on that. You've got all morning to take advantage of it. Now, about 12 hours later, 12 hours and 15 minutes later, this is going to be an overnight energy. Mercury, which is retrograde in the sign of Libra, is going to quincunx Uranus, which is retrograde in Taurus. And this can be novel ways of finding stability. And because it's retrograde, some of these things are going to work out great, and some of them are not going to work out at all. This Mercury in Libra could be some kind of communication coming in, prompting action as regards jointly held property or changes in stability and situations. And because Mercury is retrograde in Libra, this might be something which worries you terribly for a week while Mercury is still retrograde, and miraculously clears up by next Monday. So be mindful of that also. Now let's talk about Tuesday, October 12th. Tuesday, October 12th. We will be in the 23rd lunar mansion, which is Saad al-Bula, fortune of the glutton. And the themes of this lunar mansion are devouring force, swallowing up, devastation, wasting, decrease, and diminishment. So, fortune of the glutton, in that anything that you are trying to push out of your life, you can use the energies of this lunar mansion to help you carry unfortunate habits, ill acquaintances, and other such things out of your life. You could use this for cord cutting, but it's not probably the best energy for cord cutting. You would not want that person to end up exacting their pound of flesh from you. So I've already talked about the overnight energy, which is our quincunx, between Mercury and Uranus. Very early in the morning, so this is about 40 minutes past 3 a.m. on the West Coast, and 40 minutes past 6 a.m. on the East Coast. We have 4 squares on this day, and the first is between the moon in Capricorn and Chiron retrograde in the sign of Aries. the sign of Aries. Chiron retrograde in Aries, of course, has to do with correcting things about ourselves that have to do with selfishness, immaturity, and starting things we don't finish. And because Chiron is retrograde at this time, you could be revisiting things that you think you've already taken care of. This square with the moon in Capricorn could be that things are brought to light regarding your professional life, regarding practical matters, and regarding how you utilize your resources in relation to this Chiron placement, and that could be causing you tension at this time. Responsible use of resources, especially because we are dealing with the 23rd lunar mansion of the fortune of the glutton. A little bit later in the morning, so this is 10 till 9 on the west coast and 10 minutes till noon on the east coast. The second square, which is the moon in Capricorn, squaring Mercury in the sign of Libra. So we've got cardinal squares today. Cardinal squares, cardinal squares. One thing about cardinal squares is that they're very true to their own energies. So whereas a fixed sign will be very true to themselves, the cardinal signs are very true to the cardinal directions of their spirit, their elemental selves, if that makes any sense. So where you have this square between the moon in Capricorn and Mercury retrograde in Libra, you might be seeing all kinds of garbled communications about these practical matters and about things having to do with your job, possibly as well. These things coming to light almost out of the blue, almost like it just happened because the moon was in Capricorn, right? So double check all your emails around this time. And if you can put off that phone call until the afternoon, that might help. If you can put off the phone call for a week, that would be even better. A little bit later, so this is a little over a half hour later, about 40 minutes later, we're going to see a trine, and this is an earth trine, between the moon in Capricorn and Uranus retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And remember that this has to do with stability, affecting a group of people as a whole, and can also be reflective of new ideas regarding what stability means. So where we have this trine with the moon in Capricorn, there might be something that occurs in the workplace for you around this time where everyone seems to come to some kind of consensus about how everyone's joint interests will be best served to preserve a sense of order and stability. Order and stability. Order and stability. Because remember that Taurus is a fixed sign, and of all of the fixed signs, arguably the most stable. Our next square is going to be occurring in the evening, so that's going to be around 1727 on the west coast and 2027 on the east coast. That's 5:27 and 8:27 p.m. respectively. And this square is going to be between the moon in Capricorn and Mars in the sign of Libra. And remember that this Mars in Libra energy you can think of very much like the Knight of Swords, rushing in all bravado to defend what they believe to be right. Now, Mars is not retrograde at this time, fortunately. But when it comes to these practical matters, and especially at a job, there might be some contention there. Now, this is going to be rather late in the evening. This could represent you complaining about the activities of the day also. So just be mindful of that. Following this, about 3 hours later, so that's going to be around 11:25 p.m. or 23:25 on the East Coast. And that's going to be 8:25 p.m. or 20:25 p.m. on the West Coast. And that is particular to the United States. We're going to see the square come through of Moon in Capricorn and the Sun in Libra. So now this is the regal, kingly energy following that Knight of Swords energy and really shining a light on anything related to these practical matters, which may or may not be equitable and sustainable and just. So that square is going to shine that half light on the moon. That's where you see your second quarter moon here in Capricorn. The final energy is an overnight energy. It's going to be at 10:11 p.m. That's 22:11 on the West Coast. And 1:11 a.m. on the East Coast, overnight energy. It's between the moon in Capricorn, which is going to be sextiling. I think I neglected to mention that part yet. The moon in Capricorn is going to sextile Neptune, which is retrograde in the sign of Pisces. And remember that Neptune retrograde in Pisces is going to make everything very abstract going to make everything a little bit disorganized, possibly psychologically. That's what I've been blaming it for. But where we have this sextile, it could lead to some very creative thinking, where all of these Moon and Capricorn issues are concerned. So now we've brought to light some of the problems with communication. We've brought to light some of the injustices, some of people's opinions regarding the injustices. And now, with this sextile with Neptune, retrograde in Pisces, and Neptune is the higher octave planet of the moon also. So, where we see these two planets, or this planet and this orbiting body of the moon, where we see those two things interacting, there is a harmonious chord there. And this sextile could be a great time to take part in dream interpretation or dream techniques, so sleep divination techniques, and other ways that you can work late into the night and achieve liminal states that help you be very creative about solution building. And remember that with the fortune of the glutton, the 23rd lunar mansion, you can take advantage of decrease. Anything that needs to be decreased. So now it's time to talk about Wednesday, October the 13th. We will be traversing the 24th lunar mansion, which is Sa'ad al-Su'ud, the luckiest of the lucky. The themes of this lunar mansion are multiplication of opportunities, good luck, increase, prevailing, and fertile proliferation. Fertile proliferation. I've already spoken about the overnight sextile between the moon and Jupiter. I'm sorry, that sextile is between the moon and Neptune, which is retrograde. See how it just makes things very abstract? It became too abstract for me to handle. But I've already spoken about that anyway, so let's continue. So, at 7 till 4 a.m. on the West Coast, and that is 6:53, 7 till 7 a.m. on the East Coast, the moon is going to be void of course, and it is going to conjunct Pluto, which is direct now. And this conjunction is going to occur in the sign of Capricorn. It's going to occur in the sign of Capricorn. So keep in mind that now Pluto is direct, and positive and lasting changes can be made regarding one's career. Once again, in theory, it's just astrology. we're doing this for fun. And because the moon is going to be conjunct Pluto, so basically lined up, very close together. Though, of course, the orbits are like slightly off, so it's not like the moon's going to be completely covering Pluto. But anyway, the point being that now, because we have that mirrored light of the moon augmenting the energies of Pluto in Capricorn, things might be brought to light, solutions, new methods, new machines, new products, new methods, new machines, new products. Name that band in the comments. About noon on the West Coast, which is going to be about 3 p.m. or 15:30 on the East Coast, there's going to be a sextile between Venus, which is now in the very adventurous sign of Sagittarius. We're out of that dark, occult, festering Scorpio, Venusian energy, and out into the playful, exciting, jet-setting, Sagittarian, Venusian energy. And that sextile is going to be with Saturn in Aquarius. And remember that Saturn has just gone direct. So now there's not all this backlash coming from those at the top of hierarchies trying to kick down and keep people in their place. You might see a lot more of that jockeying for position now, and a lot more flexibility regarding these kinds of hierarchies. Because we have that sextile with Venus in this sign of Sagittarius, which has to do with elevation of the self and all of the ways that we raise our vibration. So Venus, of course, is finance and romance. So this could positively affect your money situation, but could also positively affect your love life as well. And then around 1:47 p.m., so that's 13:47 on the West Coast, and 4:47 p.m., that is 16:47 on the East Coast, is when the moon is going to enter the sign of Aquarius. The moon is going to enter Aquarius. And the moon in Aquarius, of course, illuminating things related to your social circles. This can also be social media and other groups of which you are a part, and your emotions regarding those things, the ebb and flow. So remember that we are in a waxing moon period. There is a potential for growth there. And we are in the 24th lunar mansion, luckiest of the lucky, multiplication of opportunities, good luck, increase, prevailing, and fertile proliferation. So that afternoon could be a very good time to explore some of your social options. I also just wanted to touch briefly on the whistleblower at Facebook, bringing forward piles of evidence to the SEC that Facebook has been capitalizing on polarizing and angering people to increase their profits. There are quite a few good 60 minutes pieces on that here on YouTube, and I wish I didn't feel so justified. But enough about polarization and how much the algorithm loves it. Let's talk about the final placement for Wednesday, October 13th, which is the quincunx between the Sun in Libra and Neptune, which is retrograde in the sign of Pisces. So, this is going to be taking place at 8:30 p.m. That's 2032 on the West Coast, and 11:32 p.m. that is 2332 if you're into magical numbers on the East Coast. And this quincunx, there could be some revelation that is driven by the exposure of injustice. This could also be that some revelation shines a glowing light beam onto some issue where balance may be restored. So now it's time to talk about Thursday, October 14th. And this is the 25th lunar mansion we will be dealing with on Thursday, October 14th, called Sa'ad al-Abia, the lucky star of hidden things. And the themes of this lunar mansion: expansion, spreading forth, preservation, so following up the luckiest of the lucky. Now we are tucking those things away to preserve and protect them. Nurturing, growth, and fruition. Very early in the morning, so that's going to be about 6 minutes until 2 a.m. on the West Coast, and 6 minutes until 5 a.m. on the East Coast in the United States. There's going to be a conjunction in Aquarius, and that's going to occur between the moon Saturn, the moon and Saturn will be conjunct at this time. Now remember that Saturn is about very established energies, and Aquarius being about the social groups. So there might be some flexibility going on as far as hierarchies are concerned. And with the moon in Aquarius, there's going to be more light shown on groups that perhaps you could be a part of and excel in. Or ways in which your energies are quite established within your friend groups and social circles. So we have a couple of sextiles then throughout the morning, one of which will be at 3 minutes past 3 a.m. on the west coast and 3 minutes past 6 a.m. on the east coast. And that's going to be between the moon in Aquarius and Venus in the very playful sign of Sagittarius. So expansion of social groups, and then how that relates to increase in finance or romance, possibly having to do with long-distance travel, higher education, or even a religious group or a spiritual group of which you are a part. The next sextile is going to occur at 7:42 a.m. on the west coast and 10:42 a.m. on the east coast. And that's going to be between the moon in the sign of Aquarius and Chiron, which is retrograde in Aries. And remember some of the things about Chiron in Aries that are going to be coming up, even though you probably feel like you've already dealt with them. Things related to selfish behaviors, immaturity, beginning things and not finishing them. But where we have this sextile with the moon in Aquarius, there is room for commiseration and dealing with these things all together as a group, or having other people's behaviors shine light on your own deficiencies in a way that helps you become a better person. And it doesn't necessarily have to be embarrassing. Maybe you just are talking to a friend and they mention something that they do in their own lives that helps them out a lot, or an obstacle that they've overcome, and you realize, hey, that's something I also deal with. Next, we're going to be looking at an air trine that's going to occur around 10:09 in the morning on the west coast and 1:09 p.m. that's 13:09 on the east coast. And that trine is between the moon in Aquarius and Mercury, which is retrograde for a little bit longer, in the sign of Libra. And this Mercury retrograde in Libra is going to be causing problems with communication, especially regarding all important legal matters, contracts, and inequalities between yourself and others. So an area where you really wouldn't want to have a lot of discrepancy in your communication. But Mercury being retrograde in Libra allows deficiencies in the current systems to come to light and therefore be worked out. Now, the moon in Aquarius, also like the previous sextile with Chiron in Aries, is going to give us the opportunity to use our rapport with the people in our social groups to work through these issues. Haven't you been having a lot of problems with your voicemail? Gosh, me too. I got 2 jury duty summons, one under my dead name and one under my current name. And I have actually heard of this happening. Which courthouse do I show up to? And the final placement that we will be looking at for Thursday, October 14th is a fixed square, and that's going to be between the moon in Aquarius and Uranus retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Now, because there's a lot of Uranus, Aquarius, air energy involved in this square, the place from which the torment might issue forth and the tension has to do with Uranus being in the sign of Taurus. Taurus really craves stability, and as an earth sign is very grounded, very down to earth. So when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, it has a destabilizing effect. And this might lead to tension on Thursday afternoon. Next, let's talk about Friday, October 15th. October 15th. The moon will be traversing the 26th lunar mansion, which is Al-Farg, Al-Awal, the upper spout. So remember that if you're thinking about the water jug of Aquarius, that the spout at the top is the spout from which you dispense the water. And actually, I think that the designative stars for both this lunar mansion and the following lunar mansion are actually in the sign of Pegasus. But where you have the upper spout, you have traits like subtle attraction, benevolence, goodwill, love and friendship, favor, and relationships in general greatly benefit from the energies of this lunar mansion. we will be starting out the day very, very early. So this is going to be around 1 a.m. on the West Coast and 4 a.m. on the East Coast. And it's going to be a trine between the moon in Aquarius and Mars in fellow air sign of Libra, that Knight of Swords rushing in. This is going to begin an opportune period, which is going to last until it's going to be maybe 4 hours, 4.5 hours long. The moon goes void, of course, around 5:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. respectively. And so this is an excellent time for reaching out to important people. But double check everything, cross all your T's and dot all your I's, because Mercury is in retrograde. So you may want to focus on topics that you had already brought up with that person before the retrograde began. But you don't necessarily have to stick to that. Just make sure that everything is tied together like you want it to be before you send it out. The lunar mansion of the upper spout is going to be a really good energy for this opportune period also. So definitely take advantage of it in any way that you can. If you're awake at that time, of course. There's going to be another air trine. And that's going to be at 4:46 a.m. on the West Coast and 7:46 a.m. on the East Coast. And this is going to be the Sun in Libra trining Jupiter, which is still retrograde a little bit longer, in Aquarius. Aquarius, Aquarius, Aquarius. So this trine is going to be very good for shining light on injustices, and especially in areas where someone has been ostracized unjustly from a group. So if you feel like that's happened to you, if you feel like you may have done that to someone else, or if you just saw it happen to someone you care about, there might be something going on during this time that progresses that situation forward, especially if you're taking advantage of that opportune period. So remember that on Thursday, October 14th, we had a conjunction between the moon and Saturn. Well, now we're going to see the conjunction between the moon and Jupiter retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius, Aquarius. So this conjunction is going to shine that other light, the light of the group conscience. Reflected light from the sun is then going to be shown on Jupiter in Aquarius. And that might carry through not only some of these themes that we saw with that trine between the Sun and Jupiter, but also themes that we saw the previous morning, in the wee hours of the previous morning, where we had the conjunction between Saturn and the Moon. Remember Saturn and the Moon. Saturn in Aquarius, rather. It's all about these hierarchies and people moving up and down in social groups, and your established place within a particular group of which you are a part. So now this is the void of course position. This is when that opportune period will be ending. So remember, I said that's going to be at 5:30 a.m. on the west coast and 8:30 a.m. on the east coast. There's going to be an air trine between the Moon in Aquarius and the Sun in the sign of Libra, and all of the reflected light from the Sun during the month of October until we go into Scorpio, the energies of the Sun as it reflects onto the Moon also are going to be carrying that energy of Libra, bringing out the idea of justice in social groups. And because this is a trine, it's going to create a very harmonious environment for people to spend time around one another in these large groups. Libra having to do with our interpersonal relationships, and Aquarius having to do with our relationships with groups of people as a whole. And because Mercury will be going direct 3 days later, it will be an excellent energy to kind of push that communication snarl through as well. And then later into the evening hours of Friday, October 15th, the Moon is going to be entering the sign of Pisces. And that's going to be happening around 7:22 p.m., so that's 1922 on the west coast, and 10:22 p.m. or 22:22 on the east coast. East coast, east coast. And remember that Moon in Pisces will be, during its traversing the sign of Pisces, the Moon will be conjunct Neptune, retrograde at some point. It will be on Sunday, but we'll get to that. So, to have both of these notes of different octaves in the same sign, as they align with each other, they will harmonize. And as they step out of sync with each other, you get the potential for binaural beats inside your psychic awareness. So now let's talk about Saturday, October 16th. And we will be in the 27th, that's the penultimate lunar mansion, Al-Farg al-Thani, which means the lower spout. Now remember what I said about envisioning the jug that Aquarius, the water bearer, is carrying. We have the upper spout, that means the real spout. The lower spout actually means something that's like a crack or a leak, where resources are escaping unintentionally. So the themes of this lunar mansion are ruin of resources, possible damage, obstruction, endangerment, hindrance, and malice. So just be very careful surrounding your resources when the moon is traversing the 27th lunar mansion. Our first transit of the day is going to be occurring toward the middle of the day. So this is going to be 11:50 a.m. on the west coast, and then 2:50 p.m. or 14:50 on the east coast. And that's going to be a fire trine, and that fire trine is between Venus in the sexy, sexy sign of Sagittarius, exploration of finance and romance, and Chiron, which is retrograde in the sign of Aries. So you could be encouraged to try new things with a partner that perhaps you had talked about before and one of you had a hang up about it. Now it's okay, it's not my business which one of you. Or there's like constant flirtation that doesn't go anywhere. There could be an opportunity to resolve that also. Or even the opportunity to start a new business. Maybe you have a friend who's an energy healer and you had talked about splitting rent on a space, and they had always kind of talked about it and never gone through with it. This might be an opportunity to put that to bed once and for all, one way or the other. So then the next is going to be around 2 p.m., 1400 on the west coast, and 5 p.m., 1700 on the east coast. And that's going to be a square. And this square is going to be between the mutable signs. And it's going to be between the moon in the sign of Pisces and Venus in the sign of Sagittarius. So the tension might be there because there's a lot of flexibility involved. Almost too much to really pin anything down. And because we're looking at fire energies versus water energies in square, there's the potential for somebody's enthusiasm with that Venus in Sagittarius to be extinguished by the overly vague moon in Pisces water energies. So just be aware of that. Next, this is going to be about a half hour later. We have 2 quincunxes coming up next, and the first of which is going to be a half hour after the square, and that's going to be between the moon in Pisces and that pesky Mercury retrograde in Libra. So if this represents some kind of legal paperwork that is getting signed, or some kind of written agreement or verbal contract, just make sure that you get lots of documentation, everyone's on the same page, and you reread everything 5 times. 5 times. The next quincunx is going to be around 5:30 p.m. on the west coast and 8:30 p.m. on the east coast. So that's 17:32 and 20:32 respectively. And this quincunx is going to be between Mars in the sign of Libra, that's our Knight of Swords energy, and Neptune retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Spicy. Getting spicy with Pisces. So, where we have that quincunx, that pesky quincunx there, that some action is going to be taken because somebody has a very clear idea of what their belief system is. And with this Neptune retrograde in Pisces, there might be too much kind of vagueness and unspecified things going on, such that this Mars in Libra energy interjects itself to institute some kind of order there. And this is a quincunx, so it's not necessarily negative or bad or poorly taken, only that somebody might see a situation that has become overly flexible and institute some kind of order based on their ideas of what is right and what is just. Now, about an hour after this happens, there's going to be a sextile, and that sextile is between Mercury retrograde in the sign of Libra and Venus in Sagittarius. Venus having a playful, fun, mutable time in the sign of Sagittarius. So this sextile could be a flirtation with somebody who lives far away. It could be a fun conversation about metaphysics that maybe goes somewhere, maybe doesn't. Talking about the law of attraction. All kinds of things like that are potential here. And then our final energy for Saturday, October 16th, is going to be a sextile between the moon in the sign of Pisces and Uranus retrograde in the sign of Taurus. And this is going to be occurring around 8:15 in the evening. That's 20:15 on the west coast. And 11:15 p.m. or 23:15 on the east coast. So later into the nighttime hours. And this sextile might be that if there's jointly held property or some kind of safety and security that hinges on the actions of a whole group of people, or that there are novel ideas coming in and kind of shaking things up a bit, with the moon in Pisces, people are in a very open state of mind, such that they are able to handle these changes without getting too bent out of shape about them. So that could be occurring later into the nighttime hours of Saturday, October 16th. And now finally, we will talk about Sunday, October 17th. And if you made it all the way to Sunday, I hope you'll put some pumpkins down in the comments for Halloween. The lunar mansion for Sunday, October 17th is Baden al Hut. It is the final lunar mansion in the cycle, the 28th lunar mansion, and that means belly of the fish. So of course this star is located in the sign of Pegasus. So the themes of this lunar mansion are realization of potential, cohesion, gathering together, culmination, attainment, joy, and harvesting. We have culminated this cycle. It is the 10 of Pentacles. It is the 10 of Cups. The receptive energy of the 10 of Cups. So the first transit that we will be looking at for Sunday, October 17th is going to be at 5:12 in the morning on the West Coast and 8:12 in the morning on the East Coast. And that is going to be a cardinal square, and it's between the Sun in Libra. Do my little finger skateboards with Libra there. And Pluto in Capricorn. And remember, Pluto is direct now. Pluto is direct. And this is the day that Jupiter will be going direct on the West Coast. So, Pluto in Capricorn can be job transitions and transitions in the way that you utilize resources. So the Sun in Libra being square to this, there could be light shone on a dark injustice where the utilization of resources is concerned. This might also be shining light on an injustice in the workplace that will need to change, or that could be existing only because your workplace is in a process of transition. I don't really hold many superstitions anymore, but I do like to keep an OSHA handbook nearby. The next transit, remember that I said earlier when the moon was going into Pisces that it would be conjunct Neptune, retrograde in Pisces. Well, that's going to be occurring on Sunday, October 17th. And that's going to be 10 a.m. on the West Coast and 1300 hours, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. An excellent time to get lost in a daydream, to get extra in touch with your meditative self, transcend the earthly plane, go off to your astral temple in the clouds, however you like to spend those periods of time. An hour after this occurs, there will be a quincunx between the moon in Pisces and Mars in the sign of Libra. That Knight of Swords energy rushing in to shake you out of your reverie and get the blood stirred up about some kind of injustice. It could be that you have a revelation regarding some social issue about which you are very passionate, or some issue that really gets you stirred up and wanting to take action, and that you spend this time working toward that. The moon will be void of course around 4:24 p.m. That's 1624 hours on the west coast, and 7:24 p.m. That's 1924 hours on the east coast. And the transit associated with this void of course, so that's the moon in Pisces right before it moves back into Aries, is going to sextile Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. So this moon in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn direct now. Moon in Pisces allows all things to be possible because we are only seeing them through the reflected light. And remember that this light is being reflected by the sun and that transit. So the quincunx between the moon in Pisces and the sun in Libra is going to be occurring around 5:20 p.m. That's 1720 on the west coast, and 8:20 p.m. That's 2020 on the east coast. And I'm bringing up this transit in conjunction with the sextile between the moon in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn for a very good reason. So we're looking at this void of course moon in Pisces and the way that the light is being reflected onto it by the sun, which is over in Libra, right? And that this sextile between the moon and Pluto is being influenced by the sun's light. So that the moon in Pisces creating a lot of flexibility and opening up people's perceptions and openness to ideas. So not necessarily that the ideas are new, only that the perceptions surrounding them are more flexible. And then we have changes able to occur in the workplace and transitions between different fields and transitions in the ways that we utilize resources. And those are both going to be influenced by the fact that the sun is in Libra. And so the light that the moon is reflecting is coming from Libra by way of Pisces and sextiling Pluto. And then finally, Jupiter is going to go direct overnight. So that's going to be at 10:30 or 22:30 p.m. on the west coast and 1:30 a.m. on the east coast. Jupiter goes direct in the sign of Aquarius. 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 Thank you so much for joining me for the weekly astrology for October 11th through 17th. If you enjoy these videos, please let me know. Your likes, comments, and channel subscriptions are all greatly appreciated. And until we meet again, I look forward to seeing you again very soon.